I ended up coaching a subscriber for 30 days, and here's what happened. Simba here had the sole purpose of improving his weighted calisthenics strength, more specifically the way to pull up and also the way to dip. So after walking Simba through my strength training principles and having him track every single workout, the results were insane. So before we get into the video, let's go ahead and talk about me, as if I don't already talk about myself. But there's a good reason, so listen closely, man. Now, I've been training calisthenics as a whole for the last 5 years now, and weighted calisthenics specifically for the last 3 years, which is pretty much the process of adding extra weight on top of your body weight, right? So I'm sure y'all already got the gist of like what weighted calisthenics is. That being said, I will say me training calisthenics and weighted calisthenics, to be more specific, is what pretty much built the basis of my physique. Now, I can confidently say that I do know what I'm doing when it comes to training the way to pull-ups or chin-ups and even the way to dips. I got to a point of getting a weighted chin-up of 145 pounds for 3 reps and also a weighted dip for 205 pounds for 3 reps as well. And I'm still making progress using these exact same methods that I've pretty much shown to my subscriber, aka Simba. Now, when I first took on Simba and coached him initially, he had a whole lot of restructuring needed to be done for his training routine. But before I did that and kind of gave my advice about his training, I had to understand, why did he start calisthenics and what made him want to start working with me?
It's mainly the fact that I think you're kind of specializing in the handstands, really and truly, and the handstand is one of my goals for calisthenics. Probably the biggest reason why I started calisthenics. Not the muscle up, not the front lever, not the planche. For me, it was probably the handstand.
Okay.
One of your TikToks that I saw previously, a while back, is the one I told you last time. Like when you were dressed as Goku doing handstand push-ups in the park. That's what I was like, yeah, I need this. I need to get this in my life. I need to be this strong. Because I reached a point where I was really strong. I was benching like 120, but I was still not able to handstand, do a handstand push-up. So I was like, yeah, this clearly is like different levels. I need to be on this.
Now that we know his background and origin story, let's talk about his strength before he started training with me. Over here, it looked like he had a 25 kg pull-up for 3 reps and also a 50 kg dip for 3 reps as well. Now, this in itself, by himself actually, is pretty good. Now, I would definitely say that he's not a complete beginner when it comes to weighted calisthenics, but he definitely has a long journey ahead of himself in terms of like getting to more advanced strengths and feats. But I reassured him. I had to tell him that, hey, if you want to get to those elite or advanced levels, you got to restructure your training. There has to be some changes that need to be made. So that's pretty much where I come into play. So step number 1 was to book a call with Simba, get him introduced and onboard him into the whole philosophy of like how I train and what he's going to be expected to do down the line. Then was to help him understand the top and back offset method. Now, this is a strength training principle that I've been using for the last year and a half, and I've seen so much results, and it's quite frankly the simplest way to make progress and minimize over fatiguing yourself and just hitting plateaus. Okay, straightforward, like no cap. And a way to simplify things, the top set is going to be your heaviest set of a particular session, and you're going for a specific rep. You're not doing rep ranges. Then the back offset is just a reduction of intensity from the top sets, but you're working in with a bit higher rep ranges. So this is where you can be a little bit more relaxed in terms of how many reps you want to shoot. Now, I had the objective of him having a top set of 3 reps. So whenever I'm talking about him hitting a particular number or particular PR, we are going to be using the top set as a primary indicator for measuring his progress and tracking his individual sessions. So the back offsets, we do track it, but we're not going to be mentioning it for this particular video. So now that I got him onboarded, got him a good feel of like what we're going to be doing, here are some challenges that start to arise early on to the coaching that we had. So Simba, no disrespect, my boy, you had a tendency to not follow instructions and essentially deviate away from the plan. So again, initially our objective was to incorporate a top set of 3 reps for our strength-based day. And this was discussed in our very first call before he started training with me. So when we hopped on our second call to kind of review his first week of his training, I was very confused as to why he ended up doing a single as his top set. He did a weighted dip of like 60 kg as a single. And I was like, I could have sworn I told the man we're doing just a top set of 3. So here's what he had to say about that.
So I'm kind of confused. You said 60 kg for a single. What made you want to do a
Yeah.
single?
I just wanted to see like my 1 rep max, because remember
Oh.
last time we were discussing like what potentially my 1 rep max could be,
Right.
and I didn't say that I didn't really know my numbers, because I would tell you like I was doing 50 kg for 3, 50 kg for 4, or 40 kg for 3 for pull-ups. So I didn't really know. So I was like, you know what, let me try get a more concrete number. I put on 50 kg and I stood up with it and just like, I can do reps with this. Then I jumped on the bar. It's moving. I don't know how to put it. It was just moving. I was like, okay, let me rest a bit. Let me try 60. Slap on 60. So I'm already exhausted already. That just came up.
Yeah.
It was done. So I was thinking, so I probably could do 60 for 2, but I'll say 60 for 1. I'll be humble.
Now, his response was pretty much he was unsure what his 1 rep max was on the way to dips, and he wanted to gauge his strength, which is fine. It's okay. But what I made sure to kind of just address to him was like, hey, our main objective is to shoot for a top set of 3, and then we're gonna be working in a back off set of like 5 reps. Where does 1 rep come into play in terms of like helping us progress to the top set of 3 or the back off sets of 5 reps, right? So here's pretty much what I said to him to kind of make sure that he stays on track for the remainder of the weeks.
Next week, for your strength-based session, I recommend you doing like a warm-up of, let's say, starting off with like 25 kg, ramp it up to doing 40 kg for like 3 reps.
And essentially, after helping him understand how to choose the correct loads for his top set, which actually starts off with efficiently warming up with your warm-up sets, okay? And I kind of like to break it down this way. It's like a stair step, a descending stair step in terms of the number of reps that you do as the sets progresses. So the first sets, you're gonna be doing the most amount of repetitions. This can be anywhere between 3 to 5 reps. The second warm-up set, you'll be doing less repetitions. So this will be 2 or 3 reps. And then the third set or fourth final warm-up set, whatever that might be for you particularly. I know for me, I take 4 warm-up sets. I just do singles, okay? So notice how we are starting off with higher reps on our first warm-up set. And as we're increasing the loads and getting deeper into our warm-up set and closer to our top set, we're just hitting singles. So after I broke it down, this essentially led me to saying this to him.
Yeah, just keep that in mind. The top set is only 1 set, and you want to make sure that you're following the plan by doing a 3 rep max on your top set. And by 3 rep max, I'm talking within the sense of like understanding where we're at currently, because what your current 3 rep max is on week 1 will be different from week number 4, because you're still getting adjusted to the plan. You're not necessarily used to doing a 3 rep max and a 5 rep back offset method. So that means the numbers are going to be skewed because you're just not familiar with how to approach of choosing the right loads based off of your sets and reps.
So the first objective was to understand how to choose the correct loads for the warm-up, top, and back off sets. Then moving on to our second week of the training block, we incurred a very similar issue, but it was more promising from my point of view. So let me explain. Going back to not following the plan, Simba decided to add an extra set, which doesn't sound too bad, which is true, but it does take some extra planning on my end to help him understand. So here's what I told him.
And let's say, for example, that 50 kg for 4 reps was like that 4th one, you really pushed it out. Then we're pretty close to what your 3 rep max is. And next week I would have adjusted it based off what you did this session, right?
Now here, Simba got a top set of 50 kg for 4 reps, even though we were supposed to be sticking to 3 reps, right? And you might be thinking, so what's the big deal? I'm completely fine with him doing 4 reps, not a problem. So here's why I actually told him like, yo, this is actually great. And I'm glad you did that 4th rep, because now we can identify the next step of our training, right? Because essentially, if the weight is moving right and it's going to your favor, you should actually do another rep. Why not? Why not do another rep or 2? See where you really can push yourself, okay? But here's where the issue came about. After he did that top set, he actually started to increase the load again for another set. So technically he had 2 top sets, right? Which, remember in the beginning of the video, I told you a top set is the heaviest set of that particular session for a specific rep. Now, what he should have done instead was reduce 20 to 25% of that top set for his back off sets. So essentially, he would have a lower load for his back off sets with a little bit higher rep ranges. And I asked him, I was like, yo, Simba, like, walk me through. Why did you do this, right? What made you want to do another set? Better yet, what made you want to increase the loads again for another set, right? And he told me that it essentially felt too easy. He felt like the weights were too light, right? To be considered a heavy set, to be considered a top set. And that essentially led him to increase the weight so much that he was only able to get 1 rep, which is a very common misconception when it comes to training the top and back off set methods. Now, in his perspective, he thinks if you're not training to failure every single session, or you're not feeling like you're training hard every single set as well, then you're not gonna be making progress. You're not gonna be implementing progressive overload, right? Now, in the lens of strength training, in the lens of like a more advanced person, in the lens of a coach who does strength training as well, that is a complete incorrect assessment. And here's why. Most, if not every, advanced and elite strength training athletes do not train to failure or close to failure every single session. I repeat, most advanced or elite strength training athletes do not train to failure every single session, let alone for every single set on their primary lifts, okay? I'm talking weighted pull-ups, weighted dips, the compound stuff, the big boy stuff, okay? Not the isolation, not the secondary compounds. I'm talking primary lifts. What they do actually is manage their intensities on a week-to-week basis and gradually increase the intensity as the week progresses to eventually hit PRs, personal records. This is very important because I noticed that a lot of people have the urge to essentially always want to train heavy on their primary lifts, which actually leads to an increase in fatigue in terms of the amount of stress the body can handle on a week-to-week basis. And eventually what this does is decrease your performance or lead to a complete plateau. So what I had to do was point out a couple inconsistencies with his approach and explain to him what to do next.
I'm glad you did the 50 kg attempt first and then you did the 60 kg for one, because technically the 60 kg for one wouldn't hinder your top set. It will just be hindering your back off sets, right? So don't worry about figuring out what your true 3 rep max is, especially when you're doing it for a 1 rep max. Like the 1 rep max is not going to tell us anything regarding the 3 rep max, right? It's just testing your 1 rep max, especially if you tested your one rep max after a 4 rep max, if that makes sense. So like that's not even going to give you accurate information either for a 1 rep max. So this session tells me that 50 kg for 4 is all right. We're getting close to what our 3 rep max is because you're able to push out 1 extra rep. So technically speaking, your 3 rep max should be between 55 kg, or it should be between like 53 to 55 kg, give or take. So next week, that's the weight that you should be doing for your weighted dips, and then drop the percentages from that top set for your back off sets.
And if you didn't notice, he also did a very similar approach with the weighted pull-ups. He added another set. He did 2 heavy lows and only was able to get only a single or double, which was deviating again from our plan, and which is fine. You know, as a coach, I have to be able to adjust to these little hiccups and act accordingly, right? Professionally, direct them, guide them. You know, he doesn't know what's correct or incorrect. So he's pretty much, which as most people who are novices, even myself too, kind of go into things blindly and kind of go based on how they feel, especially when they don't have a particular plan or routine to adhere to. That means it's important for me as a coach to just understand the mistakes that he made and also realize why he made them so I can better assess the next steps, right? And this then led on to the final week number 4 of our coaching together. And essentially, here's what he had done in terms of his progress. So after sticking to the training principles and, you know, honing in on these little minor inconveniences and also making sure that he got onto the calls with me, Simba was actually able to get a 60 kg 3 rep max on his weighted dips and also a 40 kg 8 rep max on his dips. So again, we were training for strength and also hypertrophy. So we measured 2 different reps in terms of like, you know, strength, hypertrophy in 2 different sessions. Then for his chin-ups, he was able to get a 30 kg 3 rep max and also a 15 kg 8 rep max for the chin-ups. So right off the bat, man, in just 4 weeks, my boy Simba over here was able to get well over 15% of an increase on his weighted dips. In other words, he added 10 kg, which can equate to about 22 to 25 pounds if you're using the pounds measuring system. Now, that's just in 1 month, man. And as we all know, you can't significantly make progress in such little amount of time, right? But that doesn't mean you can't make any progress in a short amount of time. But I will say, like, Simba definitely did impress me, and the fact that he was able to make even more progress after our coaching, because I kind of checked in with him as well, like about a month later, like he was sticking to the plan and making sure that he wasn't like deviating from the initial projected reps that he wanted to shoot for, whether it's strength or hypertrophy. And he was able to take, you know, everything that I pretty much been teaching you guys on this YouTube platform in just 1 month. And I mean, like, what can I say, bro? Like, I'm gonna give myself a pat on the back because the results were expected. I knew the formula was gonna work. It was just a matter of like him sticking to it. And at the end of the day, like, hey, the results don't lie. I practice what I preach because I'm doing the exact same thing that I'm putting him on and putting you guys on. So that being said, if you're interested in furthering your weighted calisthenics journey under my guidance, then go ahead and book a 15-minute call in the link provided down below in the description, and I'll definitely be sure to help you reach that goal. But hey, what do I know? If you want to see more content like this, be sure to follow me, man. I'm a Tub Fitness guy, shit. No cap.
Cobra Trains, he's up next. Make sure y'all subscribe to him. He's number one out here.
He's the toughest fitness guy out here.